Welcome to the Emotional Eats podcast. Hi, I'm Kim Hines, and I am not only your emotional eating coach, but I am also your midlife cheerleader. I want to bring anything to you that I can is going to help you move forward, get the body you want, stop food obsession, and finally feel free, especially with food. And as very intelligent, motivated, educated women who've done some amazing things in our lives, it's amazing what we still believe. What we believe about how to take care of ourselves, what we believe about ourselves. So I'm going to take you through 10 myths, and we're going to do part 1 today with 5 of them. Things that we are still believing that are going to keep you stuck in the emotional eating, keep you stuck in some kind of weight loss barrier. And I am an emotional eating coach. I'm not a weight loss coach. However, the work that I do with women, we are finding is helping to have the byproduct of weight loss. Because of course, when we don't feel in control with our food, it is actually having consequences of things like type 2 diabetes, inflammation, weight gain, all the things that we don't want. And it is not about the food, and it's not necessarily just about weight loss, but it's about also feeling strong and feeling in control and feeling like we are doing things for ourselves because we are worthy and we are deserving of having what we want. So I want to go through these myths with you, and we really are creating a stuckness, if that's a word, of shame and restriction and guilt just because of food. And it's really sad. And I think if you can look at food differently and you can look at the way we use food differently, then you can feel so much freer in experimenting and doing the things that you can do to figure out what food you actually want to eat, how you want to use food, not just to comfort and soothe, but also how you look at food. Because some of us look at food and it's an obsession. When am I going to have my next meal? If there's sugar in the house, knowing that it's not going to be good until it's all gone or I throw it out. The way we look at food is very obsessive. It's almost like it's the enemy, and I want to help you with that, because when we look at food in a different way, then we're empowered with it. So these myths are going to be really interesting for you, I believe. And the first myth is we outgrow emotional eating as we age. So again, you are educated, you're motivated. If you're listening to this podcast, you're wanting to make changes. You do self-improvement. You're doing all these wonderful things in other areas of your life, and some of you have had careers, you've raised kids, you've taken care of parents, you've taken on some pretty big things, but for some reason we just don't feel in control with food. And we think as we get older, we're going to outgrow emotional eating. So let me relieve you of that thought that there's nothing wrong with you, that you're still dealing with it. The myth is you should be over it by now. And any emotion, for anyone to say to you, oh, you should be over it by now, that's just hard anyway. We have to work through things on our own, and we're just learning. We've been stuck. If you're my age or around my age, I'm 58. If you have been in the diet culture as long as I have spent 25 years plus dealing with dieting, restricting, starving myself, looking at people and thinking that's what I should look like. So of course we're still doing it because we haven't completely convinced ourselves that that is not okay. We still think that's the way to go. Even though we're gaining weight back, if we did a diet, we still somehow think that's the only way to go. And I think that marketing has made you believe that. I think society has made you believe that you are not whole and not good enough if you cannot control every bit of food that goes into your mouth. So let me share with you another reason why you haven't outgrown it, and it is okay. As we get older, emotional eating can actually be amplified by the new challenges that we have. So think about if you have gone through menopause, and I just want to be really clear, postmenopause doesn't mean you're in the clear. So many women have told me, I'm past all of that, but we still are managing hormones. We're still dealing with making sure we have, if we are taking hormones, making sure we have the right amount. If you chose not to, how to still feel good without them, There's so many things we're still dealing with our bodies. And if by chance you feel like weight may be a factor for you, or your habits, or the eating, the emotional eating, has caused health issues. You may be dealing with blood sugar issues. You might be dealing with any kind of health issues that are caused by the inflammation of that eating. And other health issues have nothing to do with the food. So emotional eating can be amplified, especially if you're not feeling well or if you're fatigued. This is a tough age with sleep for some of us also. And when we're fatigued, emotional eating is still happening. If you're caretaking parents and parents are getting older, or you're losing people in your lives, the grief can take over also. And if you have older children, we don't stop worrying just because they've moved out and they're living on their own. So things are heightened at this age. So the first myth that I want you to remember is you do not have to have outgrown it just because of your age. And it's still a coping mechanism. And we have used our same coping mechanisms over and over and over again throughout the years. I have used food for so many years. And even though I do this for a living, I use all the tools, I still have setbacks because my brain is still programmed. So this myth of you thinking you should be over it, I want you to just accept yourself as you are. This is just something that you're dealing with. Everyone has something that they're dealing with, and food is something that we are going to work on, where you can fully enjoy it but also feel in control. And toolbox that I want to help you with in this situation is to remember you have wisdom now, and that wisdom is to help you start seeing why you're using the food. But if you are seeing it but you're not making changes, that means you haven't gone to the next step to make the shift. So we think we should be over it. Maybe we even know it's because we're stressed, we're tired. Maybe there's trauma that we want to heal. Maybe there is someone in our life that we really maybe need to remove because they have a little toxicity or negativity, or whatever the reason is. That's great to know it. The next step is actually do something about it. So your first action step is when you are reaching for food, and because you are wiser and older now, which is a blessing, I want you to take a pause. And this is not going to happen perfectly 10 times out of 10, because I will tell you, 5 times out of 10, I still struggle with it. When you walk in and you see the food that you're reaching for in the cupboard, in the freezer, in the refrigerator, if you can take a pause, this is your action step, is to take a pause and try to just take a moment. If you still want to eat the food, that's okay. You have permission to eat the food, but knowing exactly what your body is feeling at that moment is really important. So just step back for a minute, because you now are old enough to know that we need to take a pause in so many parts of our lives. We need to slow down. I'll share with you that I've noticed something that I thought was going on with me. I thought I was becoming very clumsy. And in the morning I would be making coffee, and I would, hit the side of the cup with this little scoop that had the coffee grounds in it. And it would send coffee grounds all over the place. And I'd have to clean them off the floor. I'd have to clean them up off of the counter, or I'd, spill the water trying to get it into the coffee maker. And what I realized is I am not going slowly, I'm not being intentional, and I'm not pausing. I'm trying to get through that step so that I can actually move on with my day. And what I often teach my clients, and we're talking about this in the Emotional Eats community, in the group, that we have to slow everything down. And to know why you eat is great. We have to do that. But to know what to do next is really important. So myth number 2 is emotional eating is different from normal eating. And you're thinking, what? Of course emotional eating is different than normal eating. There's some people who are normal and they can not eat when they don't want to eat, and I can't do that. So I get that, but let me share with you. We are all on a spectrum. So I'm holding my hands up for those of you who are on audio only. We have a scale of 1 to 10, and we're all on the same spectrum, but we all are in a different place. So imagine that friend of yours who is kind of the food is fuel. and they can just take it or leave it. They only eat when they're hungry, and sometimes they don't even do that. They forget to eat lunch. By the way, P.S. I cannot relate. I know that there are people out there like that, and there's nothing wrong with them. They are in the normal range also. You are normal if you are on the opposite end at 10, where you're constantly thinking about food. You're obsessed with food. You are thinking about your next meal. You're obsessed with the Hershey bars that you know are in the cupboard that you shouldn't eat. You are still on the normal scale. You're just in a different space. And imagine there's just like exercise. Let's look at exercisers. There's people who walk, they're still getting movement, and there's people on the complete opposite end doing CrossFit and running, marathons and doing triathlons. And then there's people in the middle who getting some weightlifting in, they're getting some running, some walking, they're just a little bit, moderated with their exercise. So on the scale of eating, we don't want to say normal or abnormal. Everybody is in a different place. And I know that most of the people that I work with don't even want to be on the end where they don't have any emotion about food. That would be no fun to have no emotion about it. And I will tell you why in just a moment, because again, we want to celebrate food in some ways, but if we could be closer to, like 5, 6, that would make us feel more comfortable in our bodies and probably healthier and more in control than being at a 10. So you are not abnormal because you're dealing with this. Food is so abundant and easy to use as a coping mechanism. So let's talk about food always carries meaning. So we're talking about why we can't just take the emotion out of food, and we don't want to. Birthday cake. We had 4 birthdays, had a celebration last weekend, happened to be Memorial Day weekend last weekend, pool party, and I ate cake, and I enjoyed it because we were celebrating. Now the next day, I had to go into a different mindset, and we will talk about that. We share meals with people, breaking bread with people. That is so important. The connection, the love that we have with people when we're sharing a meal. We know that there are families that food is love. You come home and I just want to cook for my kids. I just want to take care of them. I want to take them out when I haven't seen them for a while. But here's the thing with the food. When you have core hurt eating, when your core is hurting for some reason, you are stressed out, you are feeling guilty or lonely or grieving, that is very reactive. And we've talked about this before, that's very different than physical hunger. It's so far on the other end where we just react and we don't have any pause in between. And we just react to that feeling and that emotion, and we're in the food, and we quickly get that numbing effect. If you've been with me for a long time, you've heard this conversation in different ways. So let's talk about core values. In the Emotional Eats community last 2 weeks, one of the first milestones that I want all of you to come across is, who are you? What's your identity? What are your values? What do you value about other people? What do you want to be valued for? And one of the biggest values that came up of the women is self-respect and self-worth, self-compassion. So when you have core value eating, and you're eating based on your values, you are slow, you're rooted in self-worth because you value yourself. You realize that you deserve to have worth, have a presence about ourselves that's so intentional when we eat out of those values of self-worth, self-respect, integrity. Those are the things that keep us from just reacting. And again, when we take this emotion away from food, we can actually trigger the rebellion and the cravings. And that rebellion and just jumping in on cravings, that's not usually a value of someone to be super impulsive. When I talk to women, one of the values they really like is having the ability to think before speaking, for example, to be intentional with people, to be intentional with themselves. So your action step for this second myth of trying to take the emotion out of the eating and thinking that everybody should get to some normal eating, I would like for you to really think about what are your values? What is your core value that you can go back to and remember when you pause? Remember, step 1 is pause. And when you pause, then you have your value. What's your value that will help you decide about that food? You can eat, and let's just say it's cake. Let's say it is the birthday cake. But sitting there and eating it intentionally, with love, with self-worth, slowly, and then acknowledging to yourself afterwards that that was wonderful. It's not guilty. It's not guilty eating, is eating that has a purpose. If you're doing that all the time, you will find when you do it with intention, you're not just overeating, going back to the second, because some people say, oh, I taste sugar, and then I just keep going back for more. But it's not just the sugar. It's the idea that you've had it, it felt good, and you didn't give yourself any time to enjoy the effects of it and feel satisfied. You're just riding on that first one. Your pause, action step 1, will help you lead to what is your value. So myth number 3 that is keeping us stuck. Remember, these myths are the things that are keeping you stuck and moving forward. If you believe them and you fall into them, then you are not going to be able to move forward. So remember, we were just talking about being an emotional eater. I use that term because you know exactly what it is after listening to the podcast for 2 years. But what I want to share with you is, when you constantly tell yourself that you're an emotional eater, that you're on this terrible end and you're worse than everybody else, and you're comparing yourself to somebody who's, somehow feels very comfortable doing restrictive dieting, that's just going to perpetuate your situation and make food worse and make food to be a much more obsessive thought on your mind. And you're also going to think there's something wrong with you, and we can't stop ruminating over things like that. So let's talk about myth number 3. This is one of my favorite ones. Myth number 3 is like the one that I hung on to for years. It is, if I keep the food in the house, I'm just going to eat it all. If I don't have it in my house and I throw it out, I won't eat it. Okay, so here's where we go back to your action step for number 2, was to find out what your values are. Find out who you are and how you tick. I will tell you something about me that I tried so hard. I love intuitive eating for some of my clients. They're so good at it. And once they really understood what they needed to eat so that they could be feeling the nutrient denseness of this food and how it's affecting their body and their gut, they were able to bring in some of the things that you might think they shouldn't be eating if I was helping them to stop emotional eating. Some of my clients are so good at intuitive eating. I am on the other side of that. I'm all or nothing. And I find that I have to abstain for quite a while from certain things, and then my brain gets clear. I can pause. I can think of my values. So you can also have a combination of the two, because then I can become an intuitive eater after I've gotten myself back to a point where I can think clearly about what it is I really want and value. So the truth is, for some people, if you have that restriction and you're not allowed a little cookie after a really nutrient-dense lunch, or if you're not allowed to have ice cream when you take the grandkids out, that's going to breed obsession and constantly thinking about those foods. So we really want to get away from the obsession and not having freedom with food. And if you find that you need to have a little bit in the house once in a while, and I'm not need, let's change that. Let's change our language. That you enjoy having a little bit around the house where you can add it in once in a while so you don't feel deprived, then by all means do it. I think the problem we have with emotional eating is we think there are rules around that too. And we think that we should be like everyone out there who's dieting. Now, I'm trying to get you away from dieting, but now you're creating rules around food, even with emotional eating. You are your own person. And just because your friend can take it out of the house and not eat it, maybe that's not you. And you have to really know yourself. So remember what the women and I are working on in the kids. Part of it is in yourself, your identity. I want you to normalize the food. And if you feel better taking out the food that really is tempting because it really makes it hard for you to pause, and when you have the food out of the house, I still want you to pause before you eat anything, even if that food seems nutrient dense to you. By the way, I really want you to go back into the podcast. I will reference these in the show notes. I have an entire episode on forbidden foods in the house, and I come from the permission to eat perspective in that episode. So again, you have to find what works for you. I come at it with both sides. But really in that episode, I'm talking about permission to eat, normalizing it, looking at that food and saying, I can take you or leave you. I can eat you anytime. I can eat you now. I can eat you later. But the intentional feeling of being able to slow down and eat it and not use it to numb out, not use it to comfort ourselves, not use it to escape whatever icky, uncomfortable feelings that we have. So just because you don't have it in the house doesn't mean you won't go get it either. So you have to figure out what policies, what values, what do you want to create for yourself? I have a client who only eats certain things when she pulls them out, puts them on a plate, sits down at the table, like potato chips, for example, and creates a little environment for them where she can sit and eat. She doesn't just go into the bag when she's upset anymore. That might have happened before and eaten half a bag without realizing it because she was numbing and working through feelings. Now she takes that pause and she'll say, I really do want a few chips, but I'm going to put them on my plate. And this is not about restriction. This is about being intentional. So your step with myth number 3, remember step number 1 was to pause. Step number 2 is find out what are your values for yourself. Step number 3 is to have intention. Because notice how these all kind of go together. When you pause and you have intention, you're not having that mindlessness. And guess what? I still mindlessly eat sometimes. I just did an episode 2 weeks ago about coming home and after work just digging into whatever's in the pantry because I was not having a good work transition and I wasn't really taking care of myself. During this situation where we're talking about having food in the house or not, I also had mentioned nutrient-dense food. There are so many amazing podcasts out there where the experts are really talking about when you fill yourself up with the protein, the fruits, the vegetables. There are many experts who also feel if you're going to food sequence, that's very helpful to have your protein and fiber first. And then if you do want that treat, to have it at the end of that meal to help anchor that blood sugar. So if blood sugar is a problem of yours, remember we're talking about there are consequences to this emotional eating, and that's why we want to break free from some of these things that we're believing. So willpower is not a long-term solution. We've talked about that so many times, but if willpower is not the solution, what is? And that is calming our nervous system, regulating it, taking the pause, but that's not the final step. I've spent so many episodes building you up to this. The final step is having the actual physical shift to not use the food the same way you did before. You can still love that food. You can still have it, but we're looking at that food in a very different way, in a very empowered way, non-obsessive way. We're really going to have some neutrality here. This full permission on food, it creates this thing where I'm not urgent. It's not scarcity anymore. I'm not thinking I'll never have birthday cake again. And it's funny, I have someone that I had on the podcast, Jared Hamilton. He's amazing. You have to go back and listen to that episode too. But Jared says, if you want to go buy a birthday cake and your birthday isn't for 6 months, you can still go buy a birthday cake. You will always have the ability to have it. And when you convince yourself in your mind that that's the truth, there's no scarcity or urgency. The stores, the gas stations, everything is full of all this food. You are never going to have to say never on any of this food again. And when you've convinced yourself of that, then you're not having this urgency over it. So remember, it's all about intention. Myth number 4 is you have to be perfectly eating. You've got to eat everything perfectly, no processed food, no sugar, or you're not going to lose weight and you're not going to stop emotional eating. This is actually a really good one for me too, because I have spent years, because of the diet culture, because of what we've been told, and because of what you see, and you see before and after pictures, and these women share with you what they eat. Now, yes, there are certain people who are in the fitness industry who are going to be able to do that all the time. And that is just something that they can do. Again, we're all on the spectrum. They're on one end of the spectrum. We just happen to be on the other. And I say we because, ladies, I am with you. I am still like, I do this all day, every day. And I have amazing conversations and we're moving forward with my clients and myself, but I still have to practice all this. This is ingrained in me to think of things as I have to be perfect. So that's why I mentioned when you have that treat at the end of a meal, thinking about how to have it with intention so that you have the healthiest way of having it, but you also get that treat. You also get it if that's how you can do it. But remember what I said, some people are not like that. I do better not doing that for a while until my brain is clear and I have intention and back to my values. If you can have it and not go crazy and be able to stop, that's amazing. So perfection is a trap. So if you think you have to be perfect and you're only eating, like I wish I could personally just eat meat, fish, eggs, fruits, and vegetables all day, every day. I think that would be amazing. It's very simple. If you think about that, that really narrows down what I would have to think about. However, it is not easy. And it's funny because I listen to Smoke of Higher Up Wellness and he says the same thing. It is simple what we're supposed to do, but it's not easy because guess what? You have emotions. You have emotion around food. And some food is really fun and some food creates emotion and happiness. So when we take that away, then we start thinking we have to be perfect, and then we have that rebellion again. We have much, much more cravings. And I do believe there's a point if you want to reach certain goals that you really have to just have that intention again. So remember, the first three, we had the pause, value, intention. Perfectionism, we really can increase our anxiety and our fear around food when we're trying to be perfect. We have a fear of failure, and I think that's really, really challenging for people. I will tell you that I had a restrict-binge cycle over and over again for years. I would restrict all my food because I felt guilty about binging, and I would binge because I felt guilty for falling off the restriction. And it was a cycle that was terrible because I was trying so hard to be perfect, and then I was so imperfect. Progress includes not being perfect. Remember what I said when you have to take that pause, and every time you look at food, you just take a pause. And it doesn't have to be a beat yourself up pause like you shouldn't eat that. Pause and say, what does this mean to me right now? That does not happen 10 out of 10 times even for me. And so I want you to just practice. If it happens 1 out of 10 times, you have a win, and I want you to send me a message on Instagram. I want you to let me know or comment on the video. I want you to tell me if you even got 1 out of 10, because that's a start, and that is all we need. Perfectionism is so challenging. Perfection, for me, it builds so much resilience and flexibility. So I started this business when I was 50. So I had been coaching before I actually started the business. But 8 years of doing this business, I have made so many mistakes and so much failure. And it's created a much stronger person who can put up with a lot of stuff right now. And when you are imperfect with food, but you understand it, instead of just saying, oh my gosh, I'm gaining weight, I'm getting fat, this is my fault, this is why it's happening. When you can stop and say, this is part of my process, this is part of my journey, then you are going to learn a lot from it. The problem we have in this society is we want everything to be quick fix, and we forget that we really need to be every day in the journey. Every single day we need to be in the journey, not the destination. Because remember what I said, when you stop emotional eating, the byproduct can be weight loss. I don't teach weight loss. You can go on the internet for free and Google 1,000 diets, 1,000 meal plans. You can see all the things that these women are doing online, and you can try them. But I don't teach that because that is not what is sustainable. I teach how to stop the emotional eating and how to look at food differently and how to be intentional and be in the moment with your food, because that is long term, and that is food freedom, and it gives you permission to eat, and you can make changes that are powered from within you and your values, not from someone telling you you're bad because you ate a cookie instead of sticking to the meal plan that is only real food. And I do believe in eating real food and eating clean. It's the basis, it's the foundation of my eating plan. But I also believe that there are times that we're going to have date nights. And it's when we do this on an ongoing basis where we're constantly coming up with, this week I have 5 birthdays and Next week I have vacation, and the week after that, if our foundation is really strong and we value who we are and we want to eat intentionally, the smaller things that we let in because of the emotion, because of life, because of good things, but we let them in and intentionally eat them and love them, that is not going to change our weight. And that's not going to change our health as much as when we say all those things. I was stressed out. I had vacation. I had birthdays. And we're just unintentionally, mindlessly eating all of it and then using those reasons. So I'm getting a little tougher love as we move on in learning more and more about this. Tougher love in what we use as excuses. And I don't want you to be restrictive, but I want you to understand there's intentionality and mindfulness versus just letting it all go and stacking it up to all those reasons. It's great to understand those reasons, but you have to move forward or you won't make change. So not being perfect is okay, but the next step, myth number 5, is what we do with those mess ups. So action steps, remember again, I'm just going to remind you, we're taking the pause, and you can do it with every part of your life, by the way. I need to do it when I speak. Looking at our values, what are your top 5 values? Top 3 even. Self-compassion, self-worth, integrity, honesty. Go through, and in our group, I gave them a long list of them to choose from, and they were able to choose their top 3. Having intention in your life and not letting everything run mindlessly. So with perfection, I'm not giving you an action step next because it's coming with number 5, our last one today. What do I do with the mess up? Because here's a myth. Here's myth number 5. If I mess up, it's over and I just need to quit and just eat whatever I want. I messed up. I'm just going to forget it. I'm going to have all the sourdough. I'm going to have all the Reese's peanut butter cups. I'm just going to buy another jar of peanut butter. What does it matter? I just messed up. I ate one wrong thing and I just messed up. So what I think is really interesting is, as a former math teacher, before I went into integrative nutrition and food addiction and emotional eating, I would do everything in my calculator. So I want to share something with you. I eat 4 times a day. I eat 3 meals, and I have to eat something between 3 and 6, or I will clean out the pantry. And I call it a mini meal. And most of you have heard about that in other podcasts. But let's say you eat 3 meals a day, just for the sake of this conversation. 3 meals a day, 7 days a week is 21 meals, right? So let's say you mess up, and I'm calling the word mess up. I personally wouldn't call it a mess up, but that's the myth. We talk so badly to ourselves. We have terrible self-talk. So let's say you mess up 3 out of the 21. So that leaves 18 meals, right? So 18 divided by 21, that means you still had 86% of your eating was on point, intentional, and felt good. So you don't have to only have 3 meals go off. Maybe it would be more. But I want to share with you, when we look at things, our brains psychologically are so funny. One mess up makes you say, okay, forget the whole day. And when I was listening to a devotional one day, I remember the woman saying, her name was Emily, and she said, when you make a mistake, do the next right thing. And that has stuck with me for everything in my life, because when we make mistakes, we throw in the towel on everything. When you make a mistake or you do something unintentionally with food, do the next right thing with the next meal or snack. Do the pause. Just be more intentional. So let's talk about why messing up is a myth. Show where you need more support, maybe from me or a group. You need a coach, maybe you need some kind of support at home to help you with the food, to have the meal prep. Mess ups are fantastic. It shows where the weaknesses are that we need to work on. So there are so many things in our lives that we're so afraid to fail, but the failure teaches. I have failed so many times that it's actually funny now when it happens, because I know something good's going to come out of it. And I know that I'm learning something that I wish I'd learned faster. And let me just share this with you. When I first became a teacher, the whole first 2 years of teaching was really rough. It was new. I totally look back and wish I did a better job. I luckily felt like I did a pretty good job, but as I moved on, every 5 years of teaching, I was learning so many new things and getting better and better. I became a nutritional health coach and talking about food addiction, emotional eating, and doing the EFT tapping. My first 2 years of coaching, I really wish I could take back because I was in the old mindset of just trying to get people to eat better. And I wasn't even bringing the emotion into it myself, probably because I had not at that time admitted to myself that I needed to do that for me, let alone all of my clients. I truly believe, I've had this conversation with a couple emotional eating coaches recently, I truly believe emotional eating is becoming more well known and destigmatized, just like we've gone through this whole menopause phase. We are finally starting to understand it's not calories in, calories out alone, and it's not just about the food. But what happens when you mess up? Remember, myth number 5, our last one today, is about messing up. If you mess up, then you talk to yourself terribly. If you can laugh it off and say, wow, what was I going through? And if you listen to me anytime during the last couple of years, you've probably heard me say, be curious, not critical. Because when you are curious, oh, what was going on? How can I change that for my afternoon snack? How can I change that for dinner? When you're curious, your body relaxes. You're safe. You're okay. Because emotional eating is about safety also in our bodies. Shame and guilt is not safe. When you're curious, you're like, oh, wow, that was silly. What do I need to do for the next step? But when you're critical and you're saying, gosh, you're so stupid. You did it again. You ate that food. You're disgusting. Why would you do that again? Well, you might as well just keep on eating. That's when your body's closed up. There's no creativity. There's no way to solve the problem. It's all you. You blamed yourself. You can't find a solution when you're feeling that way and you're talking to yourself terribly. Go back to your values. If you value self-respect, if you value respect for other people and you wish people would respect you, self-worth, self-compassion, that's when we really have to take a look at it and talk to ourselves nicely and really, really, really talk ourselves into, hey, we just got to make the next right move and it'll be fine. And even if that messes up, again, practice. We cannot do everything right away like a diet. The definition, as you know, of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting some different result. And that is what dieting has been. And our brain is stuck. Our brain is stuck. So get unstuck so you can do the things you want to do. When we want long-term change, we have to make these small shifts. I know it's terrible. I agree with you. I want everything to happen right now. But I'm going to tell you this journey is so important to not look at the destination of weight loss or being immediately free of food. Look at the journey, because if you are only looking at that weight loss, you might be able to get it, but you're going to do it in such a drastic way, you're not going to keep it off. And this could be forever. The journey is the beauty of it. The journey is being in it day to day. What can you do today? So, when I talk to the therapists in my office, in our practice, the biggest thing they tell me about anxiety is just constantly looking to the future, trying to predict things that are going to happen. If you are right here and today with all the knowledge you have right now and you're present and intentional, you can make changes right now to your day and the feelings you have around food and even working on the triggers. Next week, we are going to get into the last 5 myths. There's so many more, but I had to narrow it down to 10 for you, or this would be a 5-part series. Next week, we're going to go through the last 5, and you're going to understand how some of the other myths that are affecting you are keeping you so stuck. I know that everyone who comes to me, they want to stop emotional eating, but deep down, most people want to lose weight also. And one of the things I want to share with you is if you are in the journey, you will create a healthy body and mind, because everyone believes they have to lose weight to be healthy. In some cases, in some medical emergencies, that may be true, but for most of us midlife women, we really need to create the healthy, safe body. Our body has to feel safe to lose weight. And understanding the emotional eating and feeling really good around food is part of that safety. So I hope when you were listening to these myths that something resonated with you that you can change. And so your action steps, the first 3 that I shared with you that kind of go through actually 4 steps, are pausing, taking a moment before everything you do. Practice taking a pause. Figuring out what your values are. Having intention, trying to have intention around what you eat, what you have in the house, and intention around knowing who you are. Here's your last action step: to download the free tapping video in the show notes. I have created a video for emotional eating, especially for later in the day, but when you listen to this and you do the tapping exercise with me, you will see how it can relate to any type of eating throughout the day. So that's your last action step. And if you're interested in learning more about our community, we have a beautiful group of women who are talking this through. I'm taking them through the steps one by one that I would love for them to go through. It's going to help free them up from feeling completely obsessed with food and taking those mindless steps, and as opposed to the intentional steps to eat well. And I would be so excited if you wanted to know more about that. You can reach out to me on Instagram at Kim Hines Health. You can, when you get the tapping video, you also can always hit reply on the emails that you get, and I read every single email that comes in. Just leave a comment for me either on Instagram or on the YouTube comments, and I would love to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you feel very hopeful. And my goal for you today was for you to understand that you are okay. You are normal, and you are moving forward just by listening to this video. I appreciate you. Make sure you share this episode with somebody you might be talking to about emotional eating. And please hit download or subscribe and follow so that you will always get my episodes. And make sure you nourish your entire life and give yourself lots of grace today.